in the perfect shade when the earthquake struck. All the lights went out, the building shook violently, and she was thrown to the floor. In the darkness, she could hear things falling all around her. When the shaking stopped, she, a few saleswomen, and several other customers somehow made their way down the stairs in the dark to the front door. There was broken glass everywhere. Helen found herself standing in the street in a very expensive pair of perfectly matching 4-inch heels. Frightened and dazed, people rushed by her. All of her own clothes and her purse were somewhere in the dark chaos of a building which quite possibly was no longer safe to re-enter. Her money was in her purse. So were her car keys. Walking to the corner, she picked up a public phone. It was dead. Helen was a person who had never been able to ask for help. And she couldn't ask for help now. She turned north and started walking toward her home, many miles away in San Rafael. It took her almost 8 hours to reach there. After a short time, her feet began to hurt. So she took off the heels and threw them away. Like, wow, she made that decision without the personal shopper. It's like, this is not going to work. These heels are the perfect color of fuchsia, but I'm getting them off my damn feet. So way to go. Good decision, Helen. As she walked on, her nylons tore and her feet began to bleed. She passed buildings that had collapsed, stumbled over rubble, waded through streets filled with filthy water from the firefighting efforts, dirty, sweaty, and disheveled. She walked down the marina to the Golden Gate Bridge and crossed it into the next county. She reached home sometime after midnight and knocked on her own front door. I love that. This is a new woman coming home. This woman will not be recognized. So she needs to knock on her own front door to announce herself. Most of us, we never become new. A lot of us don't become new. And so we never have to announce, like, oh, I'm coming home now. I'm new. I shall make all things new. She reached home sometime after midnight and knocked on her own front door. It was opened by her fiancé, who had never seen her before with her hair uncombed. Without a word, he took her into his arms, kicked the door closed, covered her dirty, tear-stained face with kisses, and made love to her right there on the floor. That's what I'm talking about. Can you imagine? He starts kissing her face, and he doesn't want to let her go because she might go clean up. So he holds her, and then with the foot, like, whew, and then, honey, bam! Right there. I'm pretty sure Helen's not a woman that did that in alternate locations. We don't want to go into details, and I don't know for sure, but it's my hunch. You know, Helen sort of like, well, we're right here, and I don't know, but still, now we're on the carpet. You know what I'm saying? In the entryway. Helen is a very intelligent person, but she could not understand why she had never met this ardent lover before. When she asked him, he simply said, "I was always afraid of smearing your lipstick. I came so you might have life and have it abundantly, but didn't really want to, mess anything up. Because that's the impression you gave me. I didn't want this to get too, messy. Because you're a tidy gal." Helen was tidy. She was matching. She was perfect. The fact that you're not yet dead is not sufficient proof that you're alive. Come on, I just want to see your mascara coming down, just like that. Just like that. Oh, it's so beautiful. I can't help myself. I'm just going to kiss all that away. All that away. She tells me now that when she begins to relapse into her former perfectionism, she remembers the look of love in her fiancé's eyes when he opened the door. She had been looked at by men all of her life. Why would you not? She had fuchsia shoes on. She was all perfect. Of course, like, look at her. Helen. She had been looked at by men all of her life, but she had never seen that expression in a man's eyes before. At the heart of real intimacy is a certain vulnerability. Precisely. The reason Jesus was so good at it was he was willing to start. We think of Jesus as above the fray. It's the exact opposite. That scene from the airplane, the reason that worked is she says, I'll go first. Somebody's got to go first in intimacy. And then if somebody's willing to go with you, it's contagious. Oh, well, if you're going to go there, for God's sake, I'll tell you a little bit. I'll show you a little bit. I'm not going to play it safe now because you started this. At the heart of real intimacy is a certain vulnerability. It is hard to trust someone with your vulnerability unless you can see in them a matching vulnerability and know that you will not be judged. In some basic way, it is our imperfections and even our pain that draws others close to us. Was it Henry Nouwen that referred to Jesus as the wounded healer? Gotta put my book back together. So, I thought Ignatius and all things for the greater glory of God, Magius, finding God in all things, discernment, contemplatives in action, intimacy. That's what came to mind. And then I thought of stories, and these are the stories that came to mind that somehow embodied that. And my invitation is just, can we take, I know it's warm in here, or maybe I'm all riled up, but can we take just like 10 minutes? And I think the simplest way to host a conversation is, my conviction is God is a contact sport. And so if God was active and present, and I hope that we allowed God to be active and present, then we should say things like, God, that hit me. Oh, God, that struck me. Oh, God, that moved me. God, that spoke to me. God, that provoked me. God, that challenged me. God, that evoked something in me. See, that God is not merely an idea. God is a felt experience. So we should feel God between our clavicles and the middle of our thigh. And then if you want to theologize, you can talk about ideas. But the God experience starts with like, oh, when he told that one about that guy being held by those guys in the German bar, I don't know what it was, but when that woman knelt down in the plane and they both had their versions of diapers, that stunned me because I've always been, whatever. So I guess my invitation is to speak out of any portion of the evening that sort of got your like, oh, and clearly different elements of it connected differently with different people. So that would be my suggestion. We'll do that modestly, 10 minutes or so, and then do a little bit of closure, say amen with a great deal of robustness, or we'll stay after, and then we'll mercifully call it a night. Does that sound okay? You want to join one of the... Yeah.